Episode 57, Samantha Hale. Samantha Hale is a comedian, writer, producer, and most importantly, she's a horror comedy institution. She produces the show Horror Nerd, which combines horror movies, stand-up comedy, storytelling, and cinema nostalgia into one incredible show that's generating a buzz in LA and now nationally. It's officially spooky season. Please welcome to the show, Samantha Hale. Samantha Hale, good to see you. And a cat just appeared, which is a perfect start.
She kind of insists on being a part of this. I just found this little kitten in a bush about a month ago. I was watering my lawn, minding my own business, and now I have a cat. And I'm a dog person, but now I have a cat.
That's so awesome. Yeah. She's I mean, all the audio listeners, I'm sorry you don't get to see the beautiful cat that just jumped up. And yeah, she's tiny. So you just found her.
Yeah, I was just out there watering the lawn. I heard this crying and I thought, that doesn't sound right. Because we have a lot of feral cats around here. Mm-hmm. And my neighbor does her best to do the trap and release where she traps them, spays, neuters, and then releases them. But sometimes they still have some fun while they have their parts. So I thought like on a Friday, I was doing the dishes and I looked out the window and I saw this massive orange tabby cat chasing. I was like, was that a kitten? Holy hell, did a kitten just run? And then the next day she was trapped on a fence in a bush and said, I live here now. Okay, thanks, human.
That's so cool. Well, what made you decide to keep her?
I mean, you saw her. She's pretty cute.
Yeah, she is.
You know, it's just ironic because I'm such an animal person and I've fostered a couple dogs in the last few months, but my dog, like love of my life, Doberman, passed away in November. And I was just kind of starting to build up. Okay, I think I'm ready again. And I told the universe, listen, if a dog just shows up and clearly picks me and needs help, then I'm just going to know that that's my dog. And the universe was like, F you, here's a cat.
But they're the ones who always pick. I mean, cats pick you. That's the thing. Like cats, dogs do too, but cats really, like literally. They pick you.
They do. I didn't know that the cat distribution system was a thing until I posted a picture of this cat. Like, guys, I don't know what to do. I found this kitten. Everyone's like, oh my God, well, she's yours now. Cat distribution. It's a TikTok thing. It's just like clips of cats just appearing, like dropping out of the sky and just saying, yeah, you're mine now. That's how it works.
So, and I swear I had questions prepared, and we're going to get to that in a second, but we clearly got sidetracked on a worthwhile sidetrack that really does connect to everything because, so my cat Lucy, she is an all black cat.
I love cats.
She's the best. Yeah. And black cats are awesome. And she ran into my house senior year of college. My roommate went out to have a cigarette. She ran into the house and just decided, hey, I'm living here. Yeah. And that was 18 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, she's still going strong. And it was in October.
Oh, that's very my vibe. That's
all black, October, just ran into the house. And there's another layer here that's kind of fun. We were looking for a cat. We wanted to get a cat because we had mice in our basement. And, you know, this was Midwest. I went to college in Indiana. We had mice in the basement. And we just decided, let's get a cat. Why not? That'll be fun. So we were looking for cats. Like, we were just looking for a cat. And she just ran into the house. My roommate, I still remember, my roommate called me because I was at my girlfriend at the time. I was at her house. He called me and he goes, hey, I think we have a cat. And I go, oh, cool. Did you guys pick one out? And he goes, no, she came in.
Yeah, she picked us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how they do it.
And that's how they do it.
The funny thing is, so I have the cat and I come home and one of my best friends lives with me, Jessica, and I knocked on her door and I was like, please don't get mad at me. Please don't kill me. And she's like, why? And then I just show her this little fluffy and she was like, oh, well, what are we going to do? She told me last night, she's like, in my head, I said, we have a cat now. I mean, I don't know why you ever thought we didn't have a cat once you found her. And then I sent the picture of her to my boyfriend. My boyfriend said, oh, wow, what kind of dog is that? Because we have been looking at dogs this whole time, and yeah.
You can get one of each, right?
Yeah, well, I'm figuring that out. Ironically, there is a dog that I was really interested in and I wanted to meet, and the plan was to meet her. I went on a trip. I was gone for a few weeks. So I thought, okay, I'm going to meet this dog when I get back, but I found the cat right before I left.
Mm-hmm.
So luckily my neighbor watched her while I was gone. But yeah, so now I just have to be super clear with whatever rescue. She has got to be cat friendly, or he, whoever the dog is, has to be cool with cats. Like,
yeah,
this little cat runs my life now.
So. Kittens are so adaptable, though. I mean, the cat will adjust as long as the dog's not totally crazy. Yeah, like it'll be a total fine thing. Yeah. As they get older, that gets tougher. Like I considered another cat, and we just sort of broke it down, talked to some vets, talked to some people that really know cats. And at Lucy's age, it could be really, really tough on her just having that big of a change. Yeah. So we decided against it because it was just one of those things. I thought, well, maybe a kitten will kind of keep her young, you know? And
it works for dogs, but
it works for dogs. They say for cats, sometimes it does work that way. But other times it goes the complete opposite way, and it's the worst thing you could do. So I decided, okay, she's just going to be the queen of the castle, as she has been for a very, very long time.
And she's been okay as a single cat this whole time?
Yeah, well, she used to live with another cat. My ex had a cat, so they lived together for a long time. But it's just been me and her for a good amount of years now, and she likes it. She's very people friendly. She loves being around people. It's to the point where if we are going out of town for a long period of time, if someone can't come and stay at our place, we have at times brought her to somebody else because she does better with familiar people in a new surrounding than she does in a familiar surrounding alone. She does not like being alone for a long time.
Yeah, I don't think she does. We're calling her Figaro, like the cat from Pinocchio.
That's cool.
We thought it was a boy at first. Now we kind of think more girl. It's, but we decided to keep Fig. Oh, but I call her Figgy Smalls because she's a little
perfect.
She's a little gangster. Yeah.
That is awesome. That's so cool. Well, welcome to the club. And that just makes me so happy.
Yeah, I'm in it now.
Yeah. So let's transition. I mean, we're going to be talking an actual question that I think is still kind of in line, especially when we're talking October. We're talking Black Cats. So what drew you to horror?
What drew me to it? Well, I mean, my first scary movie that I remember seeing, I was maybe 8. It was It. My dad decided, like, my parents had just gotten a divorce, and my dad was like, "Yeah, time for a child murdering clown movie. Thanks, Dad." Thanks so much. Like, I had night terrors for years. I'm not talking days, years with that movie because Tim Curry is such a freaking genius. Like, so good. It took me years to rewatch that movie. It's kind of funny because I watched it when I was like 8. I tried to watch it again, I don't know, maybe a year or two after, still terrified, like terrors. Tried to watch it again, couldn't do it. Tried to watch it again, couldn't do it. And then finally I was maybe 13, I would guess, or so. And I put it on again. I can swear on here, right?
Yes.
Okay. I put it on and my reaction was, "Fuck you, clown, you fucking dipshit. I'll beat the shit out of you. Fuck you, clown." Like, I had so much because I wasn't afraid anymore, but I was like angry because he tortured me. Like, I was so afraid of it that when I first saw that movie, my dad, for whatever reason, had this white glove laying around. I don't know fucking why, but I was so afraid that Pennywise was going to like come to life and fill in the glove that I made him burn the glove.
Oh, wow.
And probably one of the worst nightmares of my life. I still remember Pennywise was chasing me around in a Target. Why Target? I don't know. I remember hiding behind the sock aisle, trying to let the clown not see me. I don't know. But
did it work?
No.
No,
no, it did
sock
not.
was not okay.
No, the sock was not effective. But yes, that was kind of my first one. And then my mom let me watch The Exorcist. And I have a bit about it, about how I was such like a little booger. I'd already seen, like, it was so scary to me that I wasn't actually afraid of The Exorcist. But now, as rewatching it as an adult, I'm like, that movie's brilliant. Everything about it is brilliant.
Yeah.
I love the slow build, all of the drama, all of the, but when you're 12, you're just like, I just want to get to the pea soup,
Oh yeah. No, totally.
Yeah.
By the way, they both insisted. Yeah. They both insisted on making an appearance because she was meowing.
She's like, I heard you talking about me, Father.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'll show up too. If another cat showed up, I better show up.
I love that. I mean, if I went to the shelter, I would have definitely picked a black cat because that's very on brand for me and I love them. However, I can't imagine not having any cat but this cat. I'm so in love with she's a little tabby.
Yep. You were picked.
I was picked.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing to see.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. So what drew you then to comedy?
So I did not grow up wanting to be a stand-up comic. I wanted to do the acting thing. I also wanted to, train dolphins to be a National Geographic explorer. I had no interest in comedy at all. But when I was doing the acting thing, long story short, are you an actor? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, I came from it. I came at it sort of the other way. I mean, I did theater in high school and stuff like that, but then I got into stand-up later, did the road comedy thing until I moved here, and then just decided, well, I live in LA, I should get good at auditioning. Yeah, I should probably do the acting thing. And now I act in all my own stuff because that's, then there's at least one actor I don't have to pay.
True. Funny because it's true.
It is.
Yeah, so you know quite well the audition process and how sometimes out of control it is. Like you can't help if you're too tall or too short or too big or too this or whatever. If you remind the director of their ex, you can't control that. So I was just getting really frustrated, felt like I was doing all the work, getting nowhere. And then one night my friend said, hey, do you want to go see the women of Chelsea Lately at the Laugh Factory? And I was like, yeah, I like Chelsea and they're cool. Why not? Sure, that'll be fun. And I remember watching these women. It was like Sarah Colonna, Jen Kirkman, Natasha Leggero, Heather Thompson. Wait, no, that's a comic I know. Heather McDonald. That's right. Mm-hmm. Heather McDonald. There's so many amazing female comics out there right now is the point. But anyway, so I was watching them and I thought, they're so confident. They know who they are. They have opinions. They're not afraid of people heckling them. I felt so empowered just watching them because at the time, I don't think I had a lot of confidence or self-esteem, and I just wanted everyone to like me, and I was so concerned about other people rather than my own opinions. And so seeing them, I was just like, wow, this is incredible. And I talked to Natasha a little bit after, and she said, well, I used to do this show called Pretty Funny Women. Now it's a class. Lisa Sunstedt runs it. Why don't you go take that class? And I did. And I thought it was going to be a one-time thing. And here I am a long time later.
That's awesome. Well, now the student has become the teacher because you teach classes as well, don't you?
I do. Yeah. Lisa taught me how to teach. And then I eventually started working at Flappers and I'm still there now. And it's really cool to see how many people from different walks of life come in. We have all ages, all backgrounds, all professions. I mean, I've had doctors, lawyers, psychologists, pharmacists, construction workers, dancers, exotic dancers. It's pretty cool to see people, but it's also interesting when people realize, oh, you mean I have to work really hard and I don't get paid right away? Yeah. Ooh, if your first question is, when do I get my Netflix special? You should probably just leave.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, it's your first day of undergrad and you think you're pre-med and you go, when do I get to do brain surgery?
Right, yeah. And I literally,
you're going to need at least 3 classes.
at least 3 months there before but I did have a doctor in there and I did present it to her that way. And I said, okay, well, did you have to intern? Yes. Did you have to do this for free? Yes. Did you get paid to learn? No. Oh, you had to pay for school? Great. Okay. So did you operate in the first year? Well, no. Okay. I know that obviously comedy is not actual brain surgery. However, it does require a skill and it does require discipline, and people don't put that together right away until you're like, oh yeah. It's kind of like, when girls spend 3 hours putting on their makeup for a natural look, like that's what we're doing. We make it look like we're not working at all, but that's because we're working so hard to make it look like we're not working at all.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Did the doctor stick with it when you
she did that? One class.
Really? And then she failed.
I don't actually know, because there's different levels. Like sometimes, okay, they'll take the intro, then they'll take joke structure, then they'll take like point of view stuff. And sometimes I don't know what happens to them. Sometimes I see
okay.
Yeah, I don't know if she signed up for another class. But hopefully I think she did her showcase and had fun doing that at least.
Okay, so she saw it through. She stuck around for the season. All right.
This season, yes.
Gotcha. That's good. So when did you get the idea to kind of merge your worlds and merge this world of horror? And actually, let's back up a little bit. So you had this love for horror and you wanted to go into acting. So did you kind of migrate into the indie horror world, especially here in LA? Like, was that a big part of things for you right out the gate?
So I already had horror material just because I genuinely watch these movies all the time. It's like, it's weird to say that's my comfort zone, but it is. Like, ask any horror fan and we'll say, yeah, that's how we decompress. We watch Freddy or Jason because it's like a way to explore those fears and that what if, but also know that, okay, I'm going to walk home out of the theater and I'll be fine. So I had some material. But really the idea came in the pandemic because we couldn't work, right? We were all just stuck in our houses. And especially for anyone a live performer, that all got taken away, of course. So I was bored out of my mind. And I thought, well, how can I entertain myself, have some fun, and create content? So I realized while I'm in Los Angeles, I have access to all of these iconic filming locations. We have the Michael Myers house. We have the Nightmare on Elm Street house. We have, Child's Play 2. There's a bunch of them are all in Pasadena, right? There's a bunch in Hollywood. I mean, it's Hollywood. People film here, all the time. So I thought, why don't I go to these houses and just make funny videos in front of them and roast the killer? And I did it. I think I did like the Michael Myers house, the Tommy Doyle house, Laurie Strode house, the house from Insidious, the murder house from American Horror Story. And I started doing them just for me. And I started getting a really good response of, ooh, when's your next one? Ooh, what house are you going to now? And so when the world started slowly opening and the Improv was about to open, a friend of mine, Sarah Taylor, who ran an amazing show there, she said, hey, listen, I think they have spots right now. You should pitch this idea. They like doing fun concepts in the lab. And this is certainly different. Why don't you give it a go? And I thought, all right, so let me kind of figure out how to make this a stand-up comedy format. I figured, okay, well, not just me, it's a bunch of comics, but they can only do scary movie material. And so I pitched it to them for like a Halloween October show. And I thought we would do it once, or maybe it would just be an October thing. But it was so much fun and they loved it so much. And I loved it so much that it's become a regular monthly show. And we're at almost 3 years now, 2.5 years. So, and then eventually, so I'll just have different comics will come in, and each month we do a different theme. So we've done all the major genres, the vampires, paranormal, creature feature, slashers, et cetera, et cetera. Now we've gone into the subgenres. Now I'm going into the subgenres to try to make it different. And then my friend Tom Dolby did a few shows with me. And so I would decorate the stage. I would go to Spirit Halloween. I would go to whatever, and just decorate with cheesy Halloween fun stuff. And Tom, being a fabulous gay man, was like, no, we're going to elevate this. And so he he doesn't sound like that, but he brought in, he built an actual stage, like stage decor, like a set, as if it were a play. And
wow.
Yeah. So he kind of elevated it. Like, for example, a couple months ago, we did Gothic Horror Night. So I built a Dracula's Castle kind of a vibe on stage. and we use slides and clips, and we make it more of an experience than a normal show. And I always give the comics at least a month. Hey, here's the theme. Go, little horror birds, right? Watch these movies, write whatever jokes you want. And it's really amazing. We've had Jamie Kennedy on the show from Scream. We have Dana Gould does it regularly. We had Pancho Mueller from Rob Zombie's 31 and Three from Hell. So it's been quite the journey. It's super fun. And we shot it as a special. So Tom Dolby came in and directed the hour special version of it. And we're getting that out there into the world right now. We've got some things cooking, so fingers crossed. But
that's so cool. I had heard of Horror Nerd pretty much since you started it. I thought it was the coolest sounding thing, and I finally got to, for a peek under the hood, I finally got to catch it at the Midsummer event in Long Beach a couple of weeks ago. I didn't get to say hello to you because I unfortunately couldn't stick around the entire time, but it was so cool to see it in person finally. And it was also so cool to see it in that format where it was just a bunch of horror fans.
Yeah.
And it was obvious some of them already knew what it was and probably had been to your shows at the Improv before. But it was obvious some people, what is this? Didn't know what it was, but we're having a freaking awesome time. I mean, I loved it. I just thought it was so cool. And especially since, I know you and I know Jazzy. And so it was just so cool to just see everyone just totally in their element rock it on that stage. So
yeah, Midsummer Scream is a really special convention. So it happens every year. It's a specifics. She's getting into something over here. I'm like, what is this little cat demon getting into now? But it's so it happens every year. It's a Halloween horror themed convention. This was, I think, their biggest record attendance ever. I mean, I'm talking thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And I'm very lucky that I got to do this last year as well. This is our second time. And that was a big deal for me because for me, going to Midsummer as a fan, I was like, I want to be here. I want to walk around with a talent badge. I want to be part of this somehow. And so the fact that it happened, just a couple of years later is pretty amazing. Shout out David Markland and Claire Dunlap for having me. They love Halloween and they bring all of us weird kids together. And the fun thing about doing the show that you saw in the crowd, it's like you're performing for Ghostface and Michael and Freddy and a dead this and a murder this and a this. People are so creative. The cosplay is wonderful.
Oh, it was so cool. So I didn't really know what it was. I'm getting back. Well, I don't know if getting back's the right way to put it. So I always liked horror as a kid. I don't think I was ever quite at your level, but I always liked it. I enjoyed playing with a Ouija board.
No, see, I don't even do that. No,
oh, really?
No, I'm going to pass on that. Listen, if there's a possibility that something can come through that board, why the fuck? You can't just be like, hey, Mom, is that you? You don't know if it's Mom.
Of course not.
Nope.
Part of the fun of it.
I'm cool. I'm going to pass on the Ouija board. I like it for decoration. I am not putting my hands on it.
Really? See, I just found it intriguing because I had a cousin. Well, I have a cousin. And she's really into it, and she kind of got me into it. And I remember I would want to try it on Halloween and stuff like that. And my friends would kind of mock it, but then we would start doing it, and then it would scare the shit out of them. And I embraced that. I was like, well, you were talking shit. How do you feel now? You're really freaked out. How do you feel now? You don't want to do it anymore.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. I kind of embraced it.
There could be something there. I mean, I love all the ghosty things too. I'm also that person that if I ever have a road gig, I'm always like, okay, cool. What's the most haunted location that I can go to closest to the club? What am I doing here?
Well, I love... So one of the things I did was I love ghost tours. Yeah. And I used to do them when I lived in Nashville. Like that was my side. When I was a road comic in Nashville.
Oh, you ran ghost tours?
Well, I was a guide. I didn't run the company, but I ran ghost tours because it was actually kind of a perfect setup. The guy who ran the company was used to be a stand-up. Okay. So when I was a road comic in Nashville, summers were always really slow. Like summers are slow in the Midwest for stand-up. So I would always look for
here
some.
too.
Oh yeah, totally. So I was always looking for some supplemental stuff because obviously college gigs weren't happening, et cetera, et cetera. So I applied to be a ghost tour guide one summer, and the guy, he looked at my resume and he goes, "Hey, I'd like for you to stick around indefinitely because I used to be a road comic too. And I'll tell you this, all of our other guides, they really hate doing tours on a Monday, on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday. But I have a feeling those are the nights you would like to take." And I go, "Yes." And he goes, "I think this is going to be a win-win." So I ended up just doing doing ghost tours during the week and then doing comedy clubs on the weekends. And
did you ever experience anything?
I saw some stuff in people's photos that were pretty trippy, where they would, because this was back, some people still had the disposables and stuff like that, or not disposable, like Polaroids.
Oh,
that was big, more of a hobby thing. It wasn't that long ago that was the only technology we had, but more of a hobby thing. They liked doing the Polaroid thing because they wanted to see if they would get orbs right away, and they would show me some trippy stuff. Or one time there was this story about this guy who I think he murdered somebody in a courtroom, and it's all true. And he murdered someone in this courtroom. I was pointing right up to the window where it happened because, we tell the story. And someone took a picture and they show me the picture. And there was this outline shadow of a guy glaring down at where we were while I was telling this story and pointing up at it. So it's fun. It's creepy. I'm a mystic, I guess. I don't know, or a skeptic.
I like how your tone went up. It's fun.
Oh, it's a blast. I love it. I really love it. And I like being scared. I like watching, even if it's really bad horror, which I feel like the bad is really bad and the good is really good.
Yeah.
And sometimes you find stuff that's in between, but usually it's
so bad it's good. Sometimes.
And it's so bad it's good. Yeah, yeah. See, I still just call that really good. If it's so bad it's good, it's still just really good.
Fair. What are your franchises? Like what are your favorite movies?
We brought up the Ouija board. I really love Witchboard. Witchboards, that's a fun one. I kind of have a love-hate thing with the church. I really like the imagery, but the movie itself, it's not my favorite movie from a plot standpoint, but the imagery in that movie I just thought was so trippy and cool. I enjoy I like The Ring a lot. Yeah. I thought Orphan was
I love Orphan.
I thought the fact that girl didn't win every award possible for the job she did. She was 9. I mean, how old was she?
I don't know how old she was in real life when she did that. I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up.
I guess. Well, yeah, she was probably a little older than the character's age. That's a good point. But she was very young.
She was brilliant.
She was so brilliant. That was above and. I mean, just I don't want to spoil it, but just
your fault
approaching. But approaching that role and portraying it in the way that she did. Yeah. Where it was just so you didn't. I mean, the first time I saw it, I didn't see that coming, but then it all made sense when you. I mean, it was just such an impressive film.
Yeah, it was kind of like a level up like horror version of The Good Son. Do you remember The Good Son with Macaulay Culkin?
I don't actually.
Oh my goodness!
Write it down.
Watch The Good Son. It is brilliant. Right. It's Macaulay Culkin and Elijah Wood when they're quite young. And it's similar to that, where you think Macaulay Culkin is like this angel child, but he's actually a full-on psychopath. Like he's brilliant in that movie. I mean, Home Alone is great, but The Good Son is iconic. It's so good.
Oh, I gotta see it now. All right, so I'm not familiar. That's awesome. So yeah. I mean, those are some of my favorites. I like Suspiria from a cultural standpoint because I'm Italian American, and so I have a special place in my heart for
the original one. Or did you see the remake?
The original one. I've not seen the remake.
Yeah.
There was this really cool, and talking about the merging of our worlds, there was this really cool underground horror theater in Nashville. I don't think it's there anymore, but there was this occult shop up above And in the basement, there was this theater, this little theater. The theater used to be, it used to be a vet. The entire building used to be a veterinarian. And the theater in the basement was where they used to put the animals down. So already some weirdness,
Ghost
and yeah, ghost dogs, ghost cats, ghost whatever. And they had a little theater there that seated about 50 people, and they did comedy on Thursday nights. And then on the weekends, they would just show movies, which it was literally just this guy. He was this really cool guy. He was just this dude from New Jersey who just ran this theater. You show up there, tickets were $2, a beer was $2, popcorn was basically anything you wanted was $2.
Yeah.
So, 2 tickets was $4. 2 beers was another 4. Popcorn was 2 if you wanted to share it, whatever. It was an affordable night out. And he would just walk into the room, intro the movie, say a few words about it, hit play on his laptop. Sometimes he'd watch it with you. Sometimes he would just bounce and do other things. And that was the theater. And it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. And
bringing people together.
I love places like that, and I always want to know about them when they're happening. Even if I only go a couple times a year, I want to know that they exist. Yeah. And yeah, so I love all that stuff. And then I kind of got less into it as years went by, partially because of my love for cats. And, the fact that I love black cats and the fact that there's still those stigmas out there in the world bothers me. But now I'm in a place where I'm trying to reclaim all of it. Like I started writing horror comedy for the first time. I've written a couple horror scripts, and I want to kind of reclaim all that and kind of make it empowering for cats. Kind of like how the guy that wrote Moby Dick is all about whales, and the guy who wrote Jaws is all about sharks and sea life. It's sort of like...
Yeah, I think to touch on that, Peter Benchley, who wrote Jaws, he realized that he fucked up pretty bad.
Sure.
That Jaws it's a brilliant movie. Who doesn't love Jaws? It's iconic. However, it was so fucking bad for sharks.
Right.
There's no such thing as a rogue shark. That was a theory by one scientist. It's been disproven. Sharks don't do that. They don't come back for revenge. They don't want to eat people.
We love taste sharks. Bad.
I've got my shark tattoo right there for those
nice
watching. I love shark. I got that because I went cage diving with white sharks, and they are stunning. They're beautiful. Oh my God.
Oh, they're super cool. I mean, all sea life is super cool.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not an idiot. I don't want to free dive with them. I'm not an expert, but yeah. So Peter Benchley was like, "You guys, it was a book. Come on, could we stop killing sharks now, please? Thank you."
No, that's a good point. Maybe he's not the best example in that regard, but like still, it's like I kind of want to reclaim it. But
you're gonna be the reclaiming for cats.
The reclaiming for cats, yeah, like just sort of grabbing that and taking it back.
Yeah, I will say though, so at Midsummer Scream, I got to judge the costume contest, which was insanity. It was so much fun, but holy balls, do people take it very seriously, right? But one of the judges wound up being William Sandell, and he's the nicest guy on the planet. And I'm like, I know this guy is probably someone in the industry for sure, but I didn't know who he was right away. And he casually was like, well, I was like the artistic director for Hocus Pocus. I'm like, whoa.
Oh, wow.
My whole was like, I made my dad take me to go see Hocus Pocus, I think 8 times in the theater. I mean, Binks, Black Cat that we all love. Binks, Thackeray Binks.
That's another one that I love so much when a kid, and I think you and I are around the same age. So yeah, we all just love that. Yeah, that movie. And I love Bette Midler so much. I mean, that whole cast was just so fun. And the story was a really cool story too. Yeah. I mean, they still gave you a little bit of depth to the story, right, as far as because witches, I think, are incredibly interesting, and then piecing it all together, how there was the Pope that issued that thing about cats that was complete nonsense and based on nothing, and that led to all this hysteria that might have helped the plague happen, and then they decided people are witches, so that's why you see the whole witch on a broom with a cat. And I mean, intriguing and also to some level depressing that
Mhm.
those stigmas still exist. But
I know. I did have a few people when I posted the picture at first of my kitten. Oh, your familiar found you. You are a witch. But they meant it as a compliment, at least.
of
So
course,
that's good.
well, that's what I'm talking about. Reclaiming it all.
Reclaim
Reclaim
it. Yeah.
If someone wants to call me a witch, I'd be like, sure, totally.
Thanks. Yeah, but like a real one, not like I bought a crystal. Now I'm a witch. No, it's probably there's more to it than that.
Do you know some real ones?
Oh, I'm sure I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know a few, and it is intriguing. It is interesting what it truly means to be a witch.
Yeah. I mean, is it Wicca that they're practicing then?
It's Wicca, and there's an environmental component,
Yes.
and just sort of a way you live your life. I don't want to try to explain it too much because I won't do it justice. But the way they explain it is really freaking cool and very interesting.
Nature and energy, absolutely. I will say one of my favorite people is definitely Rachel True from The Craft.
Mm-hmm.
She's amazing, and she does tarot readings. Like she's really phenomenal. She's definitely got a lot spiritually happening that's pretty incredible. But I used to do a podcast with Pandora Box from RuPaul's Drag Race, and we would have really fun guests on there. And Rachel came on one day, and of course we talked about The Craft. And we just like fell in love in the first 2 minutes. I don't know how we just bonded. We started talking about our vaginas right away. It was amazing. But she's lovely, and I got to see she did Midsummer, not this year but last year, and it was fun because I met this, or maybe it was 2 years ago. I met my new friend Bonnie Williams, who is doing my Horror Nerds podcast with me, which we're about to launch. And it was like,
nice.
And I was like, so who are you excited to see? She's like, you know what? The one person I really want to meet is Rachel True. I was like, oh my God, I know her. Yay. So she's magical. Follow her on Instagram. Check out what she does. She's pretty incredible.
So I wanted to ask you this. This is switching gears a little bit. And I know this to the extent where you talk about it in your act, but we've never gotten to talk about it, the two of us. What was it like growing up in the industry? I mean, your grandfather was in Gilligan's Island,
right?
Which you have jokes about, which are really funny. So what was it like growing up in the industry in Los Angeles? And I'm coming at this from somebody who grew up in the Midwest,
right,
where all of that was just such a mysterious place. Like it might as well not have existed in my world. Like even Florida, even though I had been to Florida, when I would see the Mickey Mouse Club and it would be sunny and beautiful and I'd be staring outside at snow, it seemed like a freaking fairy tale.
Yeah.
So
I do think about that quite a bit consciously, about how what was so normal to me was not normal to most of the rest of the United States or the world, like, oh, swimming pools, movie stars, palm trees. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. That's what I grew up with. So, it was normal to me. I didn't realize that LA was its own little bubble until I got a little bit older and started traveling and realized, oh, we're our own little special place. Okay, got it. But yeah, so my grandfather is Alan Hale, Jr., who played the Skipper, which is pretty amazing. I understand how lucky I am. I'm quite lucky that I have a box set of DVDs with my grandfather on it. Yeah. Not many people get that, I have some home footage from when I was a kid. He passed away when I was 7. But I was the first grandchild, so I was the favorite, obviously. But I do have some memories, and I've seen footage. And my dad, as he got older, started to look and sound more and more like him, which is pretty cool. My dad was also the firstborn. And my dad's passed away as well. So it's kind of cool that if I miss my dad, if I put on Gilligan's Island, I can hear my dad in my grandpa. It's pretty cool. And the very first show I ever did, like literally my first performance, it was at the Comedy Union. This was a long time ago. Dawn Wells came and sat right in the front. And was just so loving. And so I love Dawn so much. I miss her. She was like, we just kind of adopted each other. She became like my adopted grandma. And she was sharp as a tack, so funny, just so witty, really lovely. So But I don't know, growing up, I mean, the other kids would be like, oh, is that the skipper dropping you off? I'm like, that's my dad, but no. But, but like I grew up going to hanging out on Hollywood Boulevard and, hanging out on Melrose. That was just kind of what you did when you were a kid, lived in the Valley. You would bored, you'd go over to Hollywood and you'd see celebrities all the time, which is kind of normal. My great aunt, Karen, she was a script supervisor. So she's my grandfather's sister. She took me to sets. When I was like probably 12, she started taking me, and my whole thing was like, cool, I'm going to be an actor. You're just going to make it happen for me. And she was like, yeah, no, you're going to go to college. You're going to do the work and then I'll help you, which at the time I was like, no, but now I'm like, I understand, what she was trying to instill in me. But my first memory, and I have a bit about it, and it's just a true story. One of my first memories, if not the earliest one I remember, was being at Karen's house. We used to have this house behind the Chinese theater. It's a beautiful old like Spanish style mansion. My first memory was being 5 years old or so, running into B. Arthur, and then I cried. I was so afraid of B. Arthur because she's very tall and had this deep voice. And I just started crying hysterically. I was so scared. I hid behind my dad because a Golden Girl scared me. Like that's not a lot of people have that story.
That's so cool.
Yeah. But
were your parents in the industry at all, or did it kind of?
No, no. My mom's side, I think like my great grandmother was a Ziegfeld Folly, which is kind of cool. So they were dancers. I did not get that gene at all. But no, so it kind of skipped a generation. So my great grandfather was an actor. He was a contract player for Warner Brothers. He was Errol Flynn's sidekick, basically. Errol Flynn was like, he was in all of his movies. Like in Robin Hood, he played Little John. He was in The Seahawk. Really amazing old Hollywood films. But that was a very different time. So then by the time my dad came around, my dad kind of dabbled in it, but then I think he realized I don't want to be in my dad's shadow. This is not really my thing. Yeah. But then me growing up, I don't know why. I'm just like a born perfectionist. I've always been extremely hard on myself. And I now was like, well, if I don't carry on the family name, if I'm not as successful, I'm worthless. So that was actually quite hard on me, but I did it to myself. If that makes sense. But that did put pressure. Like I'm never going to be as successful as them. This is, so I understand where my dad was coming from. Is what I think I'm trying to say. It is pressure.
Sure.
And a lot of people assume they're like, oh, well, you must have it so easy. I'm like, no, everyone has passed away or retired that knew my family. I'm starting from square. Like I remember going into auditions. And, my manager would be like, oh, yeah, and her grandpa. And the casting director would be like, oh, that's so cool. Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
And they didn't give me any jobs. It was cool and people liked it.
Yeah, it's a neat icebreaker.
It's a super neat icebreaker. and I have to say that material, I get an applause break every time. And I didn't do anything. I literally say, I didn't do anything. Thank you so much for clapping.
Right.
I was just born, but thanks.
Yeah. Well, It's such a beloved thing. Do you have any thoughts on the Gilligan's Island conspiracy theory?
That it's the 7 deadly sins?
Well, there's that one. I think that's the most well-known one. I was thinking of the more kind of against the grain obscure one, that it's purgatory and Gilligan's Satan.
Oh, I think I've kind of heard something about that. You'd have to refresh my memory on that.
Well, I think that's the gist of it. Like, they're all actually dead and Gilligan's Satan, and he's just messing with them just torture them because whenever they get close, Gilligan F's it up. And so that's.
I feel like we need to do something with this. I have been looking for a new project.
There you go. Hey, I'm available. Let's unpack this.
You could be Ginger. See what I did there?
I love it. I'm in. Yes.
Yeah, no, that is pretty funny. I don't know. I will say, I think Sherwood Schwartz and his family, like they're very about like the purity of it, the family element. Like, I don't know that that they had all that in the back of their mind.
Sure.
Like Gilligan's the devil. I think they just wanted to write like a fun, family-friendly, campy. They're very, very protective of those characters. And I think that's why there hasn't been a lot of like remakes. And I think they had something going with Disney for a while that didn't come through. But they love those characters so much. They're very protective of them. So I don't know. I would think that but that might have been some subconscious at work. I don't know. Could be.
Where can people go to learn more about you?
So Instagram is probably the way to go, at the Samantha Hale. Please give me a follow. I also have at Horror Nerd Comedy. There's no W in front of it. It's just horror with an H. Horror Nerd Comedy. And we're at the Hollywood Improv. If anyone is in Los Angeles area, we're there usually the third Friday of the month. You can always check the calendar. And I'm very excited this year. We're actually coming to the Brea Improv on October 23rd, which is my actual birthday. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah. So
you're an October 21st. That's awesome. You're an October birthday.
Actual October birthday. Yeah. I mean, very on brand for me, you know.
That is so cool. Well, hey.
Sometimes that's why I love Halloween so much. Like, that's when I came out into the world. That's the first thing I saw. Halloween.
Totally. And it's a special time of year that there's a certain something in the air. Right. And so you have, I mean, you basically have back-to-back weeks of the coolest reasons to party, Halloween and your birthday. So of course it's going to be your favorite month.
Yeah. Last year we did a double where we celebrated a Halloween night. We did Horror Nerd in New Orleans. And that was my 21st birthday party. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you know, I always, a lot of times in these, I say something sentimental to the person because these are one and done interviews. And we did that. We met at a comedy festival some years ago, and there wasn't as much at that comedy festival as I was hoping for industry wise. I feel like that's likely shared. So, you know, meeting you was the highlight of that festival for me.
Yeah, same. It's more actually about relationships and friendships that comes out of these festivals. It's usually what you get from it, which is awesome.
Well, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
That was Samantha Hale. Be sure to check out all of her stuff. And if you're in Los Angeles or anywhere where she's bringing Horror Nerd, definitely go check it out. Music for the 1000 podcast is provided by Andrew Saxonell. Be sure to check out his podcast, the Baywatching Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. If you can, please leave us a 5-star review. This is still a very new show. Every 5-star review does help. If you want to support the show on the sustainability end, you can do so over patreon.com/RobLacone. For a Give What You Can level, you get exclusive peeks under the hood, 1,000 episodes before they're released. You get news and info on upcoming projects and films that I'm working on. You get full stand-up clips not available anywhere else. You get bonus footage, and that's all for a Give What You Can level. Even $1 a month goes a long way. All right, we are at number 57, that much closer to 60. It is October. It is spooky season. Buckle in. See you next week. Hey guys, Rob Lacone here. Take your own 1,000 challenge. No, you don't need to interview 1,000 people, although if you want to do that, go for it. Your 1,000 challenge can be whatever you want. Maybe you want to call a friend out of the blue once a week. Maybe you want to read a book every month. Maybe you want to start a different garden every season. I guess that might be dependent on where you live. Look, the point of the challenge is taking on an endeavor that enriches your life in some way, and it can be measured. And then, of course, you do it regularly. That's what 1,000 is doing for me, and hopefully for you too. The main reason for this podcast and every podcast I've ever done is to build community. So take your own challenge. Then join our Facebook group. It's called 1,000 What's Your Challenge? ? That's 1,000 What's Your Challenge ? And post about what your 1,000 challenge is and the progress you're making. All I ask is that people be encouraging of each other's challenges. This is personal and vulnerable, so be cool. There's enough negativity on social media. We don't need to add to it. For those of you who aren't on Facebook, hopefully in the future we'll be expanding to places like Discord, Reddit, but for now, we're starting on Facebook. And again, that Facebook group is called 1,000 What's Your Challenge? See you there.